Hello folks, Scott with Dallas Paint Correction and Auto Detailing here in Dallas, Texas. The title of this video is going to be how I use Iron X and in what sequence I use it in. That sounds a little confusing, right? Most of us, when we're going to use Iron X, I know a lot of professional detailers watch me, I know a lot of car enthusiasts watch me, but for those that may not know what Iron X is, when we wash the paint, when we take our favorite car soap and wash mitt and we rinse off the panel, there are still contaminations on the paint that need to be removed. We have two options as professional detailers on how to remove these contaminants. These contaminants, my industry has a fancy word for it. It's called industrial fallouts. It can be anything from ferrous metals to chemical pollution, unfortunately, that's floating around on the planet, and it will stick to the paint permanently unless you remove it. So what Iron X is a chemical process of removing what we call bonded contaminants off the paint that don't come off during the washing process. If you tap your brakes, you've got brake dust that's coming off your brake rotors and pads. That little brake dust, that metal, will stick to the paint and it doesn't come off during the washing process. You're driving through traffic, all that other stuff is coming off people's cars, their exhaust pollution is sticking to the paint. Basically, what Iron X is, and the only thing that it really goes after, we have to remember, it's pH neutral, it's pH balanced, but it's formulated to go after ferrous metals. Typically, that's the only type of contaminant it's going to go after. People ask me all the time, can I use Iron X on the paint and skip the clay bar process? Well, you can do anything. I mean, that's just the reality of all of this. You don't even have to decontaminate your paint if you don't want to. It's totally up to you. But typically, on a professional level, understanding all the facts, this will remove about 80% of that fancy industrial fallout that sticks on the paint. It's going to go after ferrous metals. We typically, as professional detailers, need to use a clay bar as well, because that's going to remove within 100% all the contamination off the paint. So typically the way this works, we're going to speed up a little bit. Most people who are going to use Iron X are going to wash their car first. They're going to remove all the unbonded contaminants from the car. They may even dry the vehicle and then use Iron X on the paint. Some people will wash the panel and leave the panel wet and then apply Iron X. Well, in the sake of being efficient, because this stuff is not cheap. What is this stuff, like $100 a gallon? You can't dilute it. I need it to stay around. I need it to cling on the panel and have the best shot to remove those ferrous metals off the panel. So follow me along here if you don't mind. This happens to be my car. It's white. I'm sorry if it's windy, folks. Hopefully it's not screwing up the video. This car happens to be white, so if there's any ferrous metals, we're going to see it pretty quickly when I spray Iron X. But what's going to happen is most people are going to wash the panel first, and then they're going to spray this stuff, Iron X, on the panel. Well, this happens to be my car. It hasn't been washed in a little bit over a week. It's got some light dust and dirt on it. I can feel it with my fingers. It's just dirty in my professional eyes. I just haven't had any time to take care of it. I've been too busy. So what I typically do, and what I typically do for all of my customers, I actually prefer, if the car is lightly dirty and dusty, I do not want it washed before I use Iron X. Well, Scott, that's weird. Why? Well, I'm going to start spraying this stuff and I'll talk as I go. Because Iron X is so expensive, I want to spray this on the panel, right? Get it all over the front of this hood, and let's see if it reacts to any of the iron that might be on here. So I'm going to get it on there. Now this stuff smells, it's almost like you're wearing a skunk as a hat. It's disgusting. But I like to spray it on a car that's lightly dusty and dirty. The reason for that is because when I spray Iron X on a dry panel that has a little bit of dust and dirt, the chemical itself, Iron X, will not drift off the panel too quickly. I'm actually taking advantage of the fact there's a little bit of light dust and dirt on the panel, so that when the Iron X, which is a fluid, lands on the surface, it will hang on the surface a little bit longer. Does that kind of make sense to you guys? Iron X will still react to the iron on the metal. You've got a little bit of light dust and dirt. It's fine. It will still work. I also want to take advantage of the fact that the car is dry at the moment. Here's a little side note. You want the panel to be cool to the touch. You don't want to work in direct sunlight with this stuff. It takes anywhere from 3 to 5 minutes to react. So if you're working in direct sunlight, you could flash the product could dry on you. It's not the end of the world, but you'll have to reapply more product. It's expensive, so you don't want to do that. You don't want it to dry on the panel. So I basically sprayed it on there. I'm taking advantage of the fact there's light, dust, and dirt on there. I'm not really worried at the moment that there is light, dust, and dirt, because it's actually my friend in the moment. It's allowing that Iron X to stick on the panel. It's not running off the panel and going onto the ground. This stuff is like liquid gold. I don't want to waste it. Now it's actually reacting. I'm going to bring you guys in closer so you can see the ferrous metals that this Iron X is reacting to. It turns purple when it happens. Now you have to decide, as the car owner, as a professional detailer, once Iron X has started to react and it's broken down and dissolved all the iron on it. Let's say I was going to do a two-step correction on this car. You know what I could possibly do if I'm not working in direct sunlight? I could take like a nano skin clay mitt and actually just start washing the car. So now I'm removing the used up Iron X off the panel. I'm also using my clay mitt to remove the other 10 or 15% of contaminants that the Iron X did not remove. I'm also not worried in the moment of scratching the paint with that clay mitt because I'm actually going to be doing some paint correction. Does that kind of make sense? So as a professional detailer, I want the same results, but I want to do it a little bit more effectively, efficiently, and get from point A to point B as quick as I can, yet let each one of these steps do exactly what they're supposed to do. I hope that kind of makes sense. Or if you wanted to, you can let this Iron X react to the iron on the panel that's still lightly dusty and dirty. If you like the rinseless method or the Gary Dean method and you wanted to go in there and start removing the Iron X and remove the unbonded contaminants, just like if you were going to use a rinseless wash on its own, you can go right to that step if you want. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to kill you with a long video, but I'll bring you in and show you how Iron X is responding. I know it's a little shady. I wanted to be out of direct sunlight, but if we look at this panel, well, here we go. We can start seeing little, can we see it? There's my finger. Why is the focus out? Probably because it's a white car and it's a little shadowy right now, but there is the purple streaks all over this car. Man, I hate that. You probably can't see it. I can't see it through this lens. Okay, there you go. There's some purple streaks right there. You can see it's reacting with the iron. The chemical is also still on the surface. If you notice, we look down here, it's not running onto the headlight lens. It's not running onto this chrome trim. Look how dirty my car is. Holy crap, this is embarrassing. It's not running on the ground. I don't want that liquid gold on the ground. I want it to stay on the panel. That's why I take advantage of the fact that the car hasn't been washed yet. The panel's still dry. It's got a little bit of light dust and dirt on it. It's allowing the Iron X to settle and stay on the paint. Does that kind of make sense? I think it does. It works wonders in my world. I waste less of the product doing it this way. And now what I'll do is I'll just rinse it off and we'll kind of end this video, and I'll think of some other things. There was a couple other things I wanted to mention. Half the time I can't even think straight. But let me wash this off the panel. It's reacted pretty well. There's a bunch of, man, there's a lot of contamination on my paint. And I just clayed this thing, I don't know, 3 or 4 months ago. But obviously there was some iron that I was around, some metal. I've been driving in some heavy traffic lately with this thing, so that kind of makes sense. Again, how often should you use Iron X? How often should you clay? Here's a good point. If I have a customer who has, I actually have a customer who has an Infiniti Q, what are those big SUVs? Are they the Q35s? I can't remember. But I did a two-step correction on that car, that large Infiniti SUV, and it was black. That customer, when it comes time to decontaminating the paint, because I see the car monthly, I like using Iron X on that paint. I like that the fact that if I remove 80% of the iron, or the contamination off the paint, my clay bar is going to travel across the paint much easier, less chance of scratching or marring the paint. Again, I did a two-step correction on that car. One, my customer doesn't want to pay for again, and I promised him I would preserve that paint as well as I could without it getting scratched up during the washing or the claying process. So that's on me now. That's my responsibility. So that's typically when I'll use Iron X a lot. When I have daily drivers, people who aren't interested in paint correction, their cars are already scratched up, maybe they've never used a clay bar before, I may use Iron X from time to time. Sometimes I'll just jump to the punch and just use a clay bar. It's not a crucial moment. The people already know their car is scratched. They're not interested in that type of service. They don't care. They just want their car clean and shiny. That's it. I can do that all day long, and that suits most of the people in the real world. But let me rinse off this panel. Now, what would be great if you're not working in direct sunlight, the panel's not hot, you're in the shade, whatever, or if you're doing a rinseless washer in a garage, you don't have to worry about too much water. But if you're going to use free-flowing water after you spray your Iron X, like right now the whole car is in shade, the panels are cool to the touch, I could have Iron X this whole car, waited the 3 to 5 minutes, maybe if I wanted to, use my clay mitt to pull off the rest of the contaminants, or if I just wanted the Iron X to completely do its job around the car and then just rinse it off and then go to my normal wash method. It's really up to you. You decide what makes sense for you. But most importantly to me, to preserve the chemical, it's awfully expensive. I like the fact when the panel's lightly dusty and dirty, the Iron X stays on the surface. It doesn't drip onto the ground. I take advantage of the fact it hasn't been washed yet. The panel's still cool to the touch. It's also not wet from washing it first, then trying to use Iron X. If you do that and the panel's wet with water, guess what? You spray your Iron X is just going to flow faster off the panel. I typically see people wash their car first, dry it, then use Iron X. That's just too many steps for me. You can be just as effective but more efficient with this method. I hope it helps you guys out. I hope that kind of makes sense in your mind. It does for me. I get amazing results with it. I hold on to my dollar longer. My chemical actually gets to do more work than trying to spray it on a wet panel. I just wanted to share it with you. I love you all. I hope that makes sense. Until next time, love one another. Be safe. Tomorrow is July 4th. If you happen to be off from work, you have that privilege. You're with your families. Bless you. I send love. I send everything to your families. I'm working tomorrow. I have a big paint correction job, and I got a couple of engine bay details with some other customers. I'm actually going to bring you guys along for the ride. One is a black Cadillac CTS, I think, 4-door 2013. I'm going to do a two-step correction on that. There's some engine bay details for some other customers. I know it's July 4th. I need to work. I don't have my daughter, and I've got a busy schedule, so I'm trying to pack everybody in, and I'm grateful for my customers being able to kind of give up their holiday as well. They want to all party at night and shoot off fireworks, so they allowed me to get in there early to be able to do this stuff for them. My point is, we'll see you tomorrow. I'll make some more videos for you tomorrow. If you're with your families, enjoy, have fun, drink your brains out, but don't drive, all right? We'll see you soon. Love you. Bye.